you haven't already, exclamation point retweet. That's the link right there. Go ahead, share that with your friends. Let them know you're hanging out with us. Alright, let's dive right into it. Let me just fix that. What is going on, guys? Welcome once again to another fantastic Tuesday. As always, thank you for joining us on Fuzzy Dice, your Dungeon Master show here on the Exploding Dice channel. Thank you for stopping by, guys. I hope you have hope you guys are prepared for a good time, because we have what it's very dark. I just realized how dark it was in my room. Anyway, we have a great show lined up for you guys. I'm going to dive right into that, and I'm going to introduce you to my guest in just a minute. Before we dive into all that, why don't you guys, if you have not already, go ahead and hit that retweet link. Exclamation point retweet in the chat. The link is right there. Dice Thulu will happily share that with you. And bring all your friends by. What's going on, DM Leviathan? How are you doing, man? Good to see you. So bring all your friends by. It will be a better show for it. And as Dice Thulu suggests, please hit that follow button if you're enjoying the show. It's the best way to keep up with all our D&D content. But why don't we, before we get into the show, I want to do some announcements. I want to let you guys know a little bit about the D&D content that you can expect from the Exploding Dice channel. As you can see right below me, somewhere, I never really know because my webcam gets flipped a lot. There is an upcoming schedule, and it will tell you everything that you can find either going on this channel or where you can find me personally playing D&D, because I hop around a lot. As always, the first thing that is coming up is tomorrow, Wednesday. As you can see on the Encounter Roleplay channel, we had our finale of Curse of Strahd, and it was a fantastic finale too. And we will be replacing that show with a brand new season of Call of Cthulhu, which I will be joining them for. So look forward to that. That is Wednesday at 4 p.m. on the Encounter Roleplay channel. And then the very next day, you can catch my show, which is The Reign of Winter. I DM that over on the Encounter Roleplay channel, and it is a fantastic campaign. It's going so well, and I love the players, and I love the chat participation. So come check that out. That's Thursdays at 1 p.m. And as always, right here on Exploding Dice, we have Out of the Abyss. That's the campaign we're playing here. We're in season number 1. We did not have an episode this past Sunday due to holidays, but we will be back next week. So come hang out for that. And I think that is all the announcements I have. Trying to think. I know I wrote this down, but I totally lost the paper. No, I don't have anything to announce right now. If I remember anything, I will hit it at the end of the show. So yeah, so those are the announcements. That's all. And we do like to do a weekly a recap of what you missed on Exploding Ice, but I'm not going to go through that because we didn't have an episode last week, so there's nothing to recap. And I don't really want to recap the same stuff I recapped last week. So yeah, we'll dive right into it. As you can see on this side of me, I got an awesome guest with me. I've got Ben Loomes from the creator of Syrinscape and also the dungeon master for the DiceStormers RPG group. How is it going, Ben?
It's really, really great. I'm very well. I have an echo of you that's maybe about 5 seconds behind you, which is almost as loud as you.
Really?
So my brain is slightly exploding.
Are you sure the?
But I'm great.
Do you have Twitch muted?
I do. I didn't even have Twitch playing at all.
That is weird.
Yeah. Hang on, I know. Maybe it's somewhere else. Hang on, no, it's probably my fault.
I have no idea. I should have.
Aha! I found it. I found it. Yay!
Awesome.
Okay, awesome. That's fixed for me.
No more
Hello.
sound. How's it going, man?
I'm really, really great. I'm very, very well. It's a beautiful morning here in Australia at 10 a.m. in midwinter. So, but the sun is shining, and there are no kangaroos currently. But I shall keep an eye out and introduce you to one if one hops along.
I just assume, and this is only because I've never been to Australia, but I just assume everyone has like a kangaroo that is their best friend. Like you make friends with one as a child.
Yeah, look, if we travel down south, we have a beautiful property down like 2 hours south of Sydney, and absolutely wallabies and kangaroos absolutely all over the place. Here in Sydney, suburban Sydney, we get echidnas, which are those little spiny things that eat ants, and blue-tongued lizards, and obviously all the deadly spiders and everything are all our friends. So yeah, probably.
Sorry, thank you so much, the Heavy Metal DM. Thank you for stopping by and for hitting that follow button. And Dice Thulu welcomes you to the badness. Also, thank you for following my friend. So sorry to it, but no, it is good to hear that you are kangaroo free. I hear they tend to be kind of assholes.
They can. You don't really want to make a kangaroo a bit grey, kind of angry, and sort of challenge it. They're quite sort of territorial, and they obviously lead a pack they need to keep dominance of. So if you walk up to one in an aggressive way, then you get kicked in just about every place you could possibly not want to be kicked.
So what's going on, Fix It Geek? How you doing, my man? All right, so why don't we dive right into the show? I know we have all kinds of topics we could cover today. But why don't you go ahead and tell all the awesome people in chat, like you do a bunch of different things. So why don't you let them know like what you get up to, and what kind of stuff we might be talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. So the number one big one, which is the one you mentioned first, which is Syrinscape. Syrinscape is an app which you can run on your phone or tablet, iPhone or iPad, PC or Mac, and it creates incredibly beautiful, immersive, never repeating sound for your tabletop games. Music like out of a movie with epic drums and blasting horns. No lyrics, no distracting sort of surface level, no references directly to movie moments which catch your attention, and incredibly immersive computer generated and randomized background sounds. So say you're in the village, there might be the sort of the occasional gulls call out, there'll be the general bustle of people sort of talking in the background, a bit of wind noise. Then there will be maybe 100 different events that can happen, like a cart rolls past or someone calls out to sell lemons. And all those events are completely on a randomized system, so that they never reoccur in the same order that they ever have before, ever. And it just creates really, really immersive, beautiful environments. Then you hit the dragon button and suddenly all hell breaks loose. People scream and run. Buildings are being crashed over. The dragon's roaring. You can then touch the dragon breath weapon attack, and this super loud, massive sort of acidic pool of death comes splattering all over the players. That's Syrinscape. It's an app. You can download it and try it for free at Syrinscape.com, and then people can purchase content in the app, or you can subscribe and unlock everything. That's number one.
Yeah, no, I wanted to I actually wanted to talk about this because I know you probably have you specifically have definitely seen me on Twitter. Some of you guys who follow me may have seen me bugging Ben here and there because he has. You guys have a partnership with Paizo. I know you work kind of closely with them. I remember a long time ago. It was, by the way, when I start. I don't know if you wouldn't know this, but I'll give you this as a little anecdote. When I started this specific channel, the campaign that I was going to run for my players was Jade Regent, but I was gonna the first thing I was gonna do was I was going to run an adventure that was sort of a combination of the first kind of book of Rise of the Rune Lords and Dragon's Demand. So I sort of mashed those together, and so that was about the time that I got into.
Just lost audio
from me. He is saying he's lost audio, but it looks like my mic is still working, so I'm checking that.
Yay, Skype.
No. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, I can.
Yeah,
thank you.
All right. Sorry, we lost audio for a second. I don't think we lost it on the stream. You guys will have to let me know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I was running those two adventures, the Dragon's Demand and the Rise of the Rune Lords, and that was about the time that I was like, oh, I need this background music. I should definitely, and this program has these modules already done. And so that was one of the I think the thing that got me kind of interested in it, and I've been using it pretty much ever since. And the music is great, the sound effects are great, but the most invaluable thing has been being able to have a Wilhelm scream on on standby. You have no idea how many times a player will tell or say something like, "Oh my God, like we need a Wilhelm scream, we need a sad trombone." It's like, "Yep, got it.
That's right.
I got your back."
Yep. Yeah, depending on your game style, there's a set of 6 cheesy musical stings, and including everything like bom bom bom, and of course the Wilhelm scream. And our game style doesn't tend to be very serious at all. We get told by a lot of people, and so it gets very, very overused, and it's lots of fun. And being able to punctuate those epic moments. Even the weapon attacks, there's a few critical hit sort of attacks with an arrow or with a dagger or with a sword, and you can hear the blood draining out and splattering all over the floor. I like those ones very much as well.
It'd be great if I had enough presence of mind as a DM to like actually use those at the appropriate time.
Someone told me the other day they have, with the third-party integration where you can make shortcuts out of the PC version of it and just have a window sitting there, they actually announce the hits and misses of the players. So the players will say, I roll a 17, and they'll just actually play either a whoosh sound or a ching sound or a kind of a critical hit once they manage to confirm the critical hit. And that's what they do as their normal game. I'm going, oh my gosh, you have so much presence of mind to be able to do that. So I'm very impressed. The spell effects are really great as well. The PCs can set off the spell effects, so rather than the cleric just saying, I suppose I channel divine energy, whatever. Okay, you get 1 point, 2d8 healing or whatever. They can actually just, hold up their phone and just hit channel energy, and the whole room fills with this kind of. Don't you like the sound effects I'm doing? It's like you feel lucky that it's just not my voice only that does the sound effects in Syrinscape.
It's
that's what you've got. Yeah.
No, it's one of those it's just one of those things where again, as a DM, I'm lucky that I get I remember to actually change the music when the combat starts.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever be able to dedicate a part of my thinking to fuck.
Well, I lost you again. I lost the audio again. So I shall say something awesome and insightful. One of the things that GMs do is they operate on overload. So you're trying to manage all sorts of expectations, and you're trying to manage who's there at the table for what reason. Some people like to play to hit their problems and make them go away. Other players like to plan intricately, and other players like to just act spontaneously and ruin the plans. You're managing monster stats, you're managing player, how many hit points the person has, and if you hit them for another 8, are they actually going to die, and you don't necessarily want to do that. And so for me, managing audio on top of that was a real challenge. So one of the reasons I actually made Syrinscape in the first place was to reduce that load and just make it a 1-button click to start the battle. That's my insightful comment, but I can't hear you, I don't think.
Oh shit, am I still having issues?
No, it's silent.
Oh no. Everyone else can hear me. I gotta figure out, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put you
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'm putting you on a different microphone, my webcam mic, but...
Yeah, okay, that's great. Yeah, I can hear that, yeah.
That hopefully won't break down.
It's noisier, but I can hear it, that's great.
Okay.
Perfect.
They won't hear it. All right, so yeah, so that's definitely. I mean, and we can go on talking about that. It looks like we've got a couple people in in chat hanging out with us who are also fans of the program. So hopefully we'll talk a little bit more about that. But you also, I know you also do. You've been streaming D&D for a while.
So that's the other. That's right. That's the other big thing we do. So the DiceStormers. If you just search for DiceStormers on YouTube, you'll find my channel, which is just 6 of my friends. 5 of my friends, there's 6 of us. 5 of my friends got together, a couple of years ago, and just said, let's just start streaming our games for no real reasons. We took 2 cameras and pointed them directly at each other, which breaks the 180-degree rule. Someone told us, so we fixed that in the end. And what happened actually is that really quickly a community of people joined around us, and sort of participate in our games and are a part of that experience. And it's just really, really wonderful. And right now there's 10 people sitting watching the DiceStormers. So for every day, every 24-hour period that goes past, there's 10 days worth of DiceStormers footage being watched, which is just incredible. So around the clock on average, there's 10 people sitting watching us playing and commenting that we've got the rules wrong, and laughing with us when we have fun, and having flame wars about whether we play Call of Cthulhu right or wrong, which is really amazing. And I used to be kind of really down on the art form, and I used to make all these jokes like, oh, what are these people doing with their lives? Coming and watching us play, it's pathetic. But actually, I've just gone through this process of really completely reversing my opinion, because it's like reading a book, because you're there's a story, there's a narrative that goes on, but it's kind of better than that. It's more like an audio book, because you're having the book read to you, with expression, obviously. But it's better than that, because it's more like a radio play where you've got individual people playing individual characters, which is just incredible. But it's better than that. It's kind of got this reality TV show element where you're actually watching people trying to create and cope with the twists and turns of dice and fate, and what the game master pops in live. And plus, Stephen Fry said recently that really good television should leave you feeling like you've spent a really great evening with a group of friends, sitting around chatting. And TV can do that to a certain extent. You get nice and close to a panel of people, and someone relatively famous asks someone quite a lot more famous some questions, and there's some nice anecdotes and things. But in this art form that we're doing, especially now that we're doing it on Twitch, we've actually got people joining us actually live and participating, and we can talk directly to them, and they can correct our rules live straight on the spot, or stat up a creature really, really quickly for us, or make suggestions that affect the plot. So yeah, I'm not down on the art form anymore. It's actually a better, closer, more intimate and richer community and way of storytelling than just plain old television. That's my idea. And
the thing that's interesting to me is this is kind of like when we started our channel. And by the way, thank you so much for the host, Mike from Unmade Gaming, and thank you for stopping by. Mike, if you guys missed it, Mike was not on the last show, but he was on. I had him on the show before that, and we had a great talk about DM stuff. He hosts D&D also. No, it was like ever since I started just sort of hosting D&D, like there's been this, we have a small but growing community of people who kind of come to hang out every week, and like ever since we started, we've, it was one of those things where I knew that there was a popular audience, because we started broadcasting like after the whole Critical Role thing blew up, and after the bubble had pretty much hit its peak. But so in my mind, it's like, oh man, is there any room for it? But no, like there is, and there are people that are, that'll just hang out with you for a couple hours on a Sunday night, to watch D&D, and it's, this is what I've always said about being a DM on Twitch. Like, I was going to be a DM anyway. That's the job that I signed up for. I signed up for the job of entertaining these 4 people on, once a week, whatever. So the fact that I get to do that, and then with really no extra work on my part, also entertain an entire community of other people, it's that's being a DM, plus you get the bonus of feeling awesome, I love that people are interested, and love that people, I love that D&D has kind of turned into such a social thing now. It's because again, and I'm sure you remember back in the days when it was not a social thing. It was just a thing, we did with our friends, locked away in a basement. But it's it's such a, and I talk to all these people, I host all these streamers and YouTube people, and it's like they have so much fun just sharing the hobby with other people who want to hang out and just have a good time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and look, I just love the community. I love the community interaction, even on YouTube where they can't watch live. The comments that come, after each video is posted, and people. Some people know our characters better than us because we play different games sort of in sequence because people have different interests and we like to keep it fresh, and we can literally ask our audience, oh, who was the name of that random NPC that we met, and people have sat and watched it, and it's just fantastic, and I love it. It's great. And we have this in our current Dragon's Demand game. We have this random urchin. Sorry, as you know, one thing that players like to do is to latch on deliberately to something that you clearly didn't mean to feature, and they'll often. The other thing they'll often do is try and get NPCs to accompany them on adventures because they figure, a little bit of help. And the GM or DM's temptation is always to resist that urge to bring an NPC. A, because, theoretically you don't want to take sort of focus time away from the players. And B, it just gives you something else to manage. And you're like, I don't even have stats, blah, blah, blah. But going to Dragon's Demand, I knew this would happen because they always do. And so I thought, okay, the first person who they focus on and say, come and join us and you can help us, you come and be a mid shield. I decided I'd just go with it.
Yeah.
So I just mentioned like a few urchins sitting around in trees watching them, blah, blah, blah. And they latched onto this one. So I had to come up with a name instantly. So he asked the Twitch stream for the name and he ended up being called Oliver. And Oliver has gone on to sort of grow in stature and more as a character. And as they've sort of used and abused this poor kid, who's actually sort of becoming statistically superior to them in combat, and definitely superior to them in comedy. And so that's been really great. So Oliver is virtually the Twitch stream's character that they control, and that his fate often is dependent on their sort of whims.
If you wanna see something that's funny, I know a lot of the guys who were streaming today, and I had if you're familiar with the one, I had the guys from the Saving Throw show on here not too long ago, and some kind of longtime friends of my channel are the Encounter Roleplay guys, and both of them are doing. By the way, real quick before I finish the sentence, thank you so much, Courtney Lias, for following. Welcome to the community, and thank you for joining us. And also, what's going on, KW Frags? Thanks for hanging out, man. Both of those guys are doing, they're doing real sort of viewer-driven stuff. Like, the viewers can kind of donate a little bit of money, or use, retweets or something like that, basically to buy into the game. And it's, right. It's... I like hanging out with Encounter because that's the whole player-created game is not really how I personally like to DM when I have control, but I like hanging out with them because when I DM with them, it gives me a chance to just sort of interact with that style. And some of the stuff the players do, the community comes up with, some of it's ridiculous and some of it is, out of left field and just dumb. But there have been some games where it's just contributed so much to the drama and things. Like, they actually create characters and relationships with them, that blow up in the campaign, and it's interesting. It's just, and that's why I have a show specifically about DMing, because I love talking about this stuff. I can talk about this stuff for forever, and that's why I do talk about it forever.
Yeah, I used to be down on the narrative effect of dice, thinking, sort of this arbitrary thing comes in and, you've got some story idea and it's going in this direction or that direction, and, suddenly the dice change it. But then I learned through experience that it's actually more harmful and breaks the fourth wall stronger if it's apparent that the GM is just making arbitrary decisions about the success or failure of actions that the players want to do. And it's actually the dice, especially because they're weighted in a good game system to be more likely to succeed on a mediocre task if the person's really good, or maybe impossibly just freakily happen to succeed on the 1 in 20 chance if a character isn't actually really good at that task. So they actually kind of reflect, in terms of simulation, at least a little bit of reality, and then they reflect that kind of twist of fate, that unexpected turn that no one kind of could see coming, and everyone has to incorporate it in the story. And so I think they're actually a really, really strong narrative sort of element, and that division between role-playing and role-playing is kind of not actually as strong as people might think sometimes.
Yeah, the interesting thing, and this is just an aside, but it's something I feel like it's a little bit of a DM confession, but it's something that I don't think my players actually know. I use a lot of hidden roles in my games just because I like the sort of lack of meta information that the players work with when you do that. But I tend to sometimes be guilty of oh my God, so many messages on Skype right now. I don't know what they are. No, I tend to be very guilty of when the players will roll a hidden roll, like if they want to accomplish something or if they're looking for something. There are a lot of DMs who will live and die by the dice. Like, if you fail a perception check to notice something important, you failed that check, and you're just going to go on without that information. And I don't think that's inherently bad. I think it can work. But I have a habit of, like, doesn't matter what the players roll if there's something that the book says. Like, if I'm reading an adventure and the book says, like, on a roll of 25 the players can learn this, it's like, I'll give it to them. I'll make it seem like they just barely got it or something like that.
That's right.
Like,
you succeed, but with this negative consequence kind of thing. Yeah, you get that, but you're going to have to pay some sort of price. Absolutely. And when the story is all pointing in one direction, and the drama is all pointing in one direction, and the bad guy's there, and he's raised his hands, and he thinks he has victory, and the player's struggling to their feet unbeknownst, and all the minions are all pointing and screaming at the bad guy that behind him, but he's misinterpreting. They think they're all cheering for him, and the player, lifts his, and then I'm just going to say yes, no matter what the dice say. I think, and we take some flack from that on YouTube comments sometimes from a couple of people saying, you've succeeded without dignity because you broke the rules. Yeah. Like, no way, we just went with the story. Like, yeah. So, and I think often it's best to say yes before the player rolls in that situation. So you're just gonna, we're just gonna bypass that straight away. And that happened to us the other day. And I think I was really glad that I actually made that decision to ignore the dice and just to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, I like, I guess it's one of those things where, as much as I like I like the rules being there to sort of guide what can happen and what does happen.
Totally. Absolutely.
It's just one of those things where, like, in my head, basically, this almost always happens when I have a choice, when I'm, like, reading a sentence or, like, talking out something that's going to happen, and, like, right before I get to the point where I have to decide either it's going to happen or it's not going to happen, and I almost always err on the side of the players just because... I don't know, like, that's what, like, it's one of those things where they say, flip a coin, and it doesn't really hurt to decide, but it doesn't really matter what the coin lands on. You know which one you want to happen, before the coin, and so that's generally how I DM, is, like, I didn't tend to run things down to the wire, and then just, like, throw out, at the last minute, I don't know, that's a thing that's sort of developed, but I definitely, I definitely love the, I love sort of making the players earn those moments, specifically in, like, and I've talked about this on this show a couple times, the hidden roll mechanic, because I love the uncertainty that comes with the players not knowing if they've succeeded or failed, like up until you give them the answer, like, because they don't know they rolled a 1, that basically.
That's right. You're pretty sure there's no locks? You feel really confident. No, absolutely. It's going to be totally fine.
Well, that's the thing, is whenever
not locks, I mean traps. What am I saying?
Whenever they do that, like, whenever a player rolls, like, a perception check or something, I almost always phrase it the same way, and I'm always like, you're pretty sure there's nothing here. And it's like, because that could, like, there's no tell there. That could go either way. Their character is pretty sure, but they don't know whether they're pretty sure because they rolled a 1 or because they rolled a 20, and there's just nothing to find.
And especially if you make it sound suspicious every single time you say that, they succeed, whether they succeed or fail. Oh, you're totally fine. You feel, absolutely confident.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, if you ask to check for something and you don't find anything, like, your character can still be suspicious. Like, you are welcome to be as suspicious as you like. It doesn't actually mean, like, and players tend to get so like, I guess, flustered or just I want to say angry when they spend a lot of time being real suspicious of, like, a door, and there's no lock there's no trap, but they're sure there has to be one, and, like, they're gonna check it in every way possible, and it's like, and as a DM, do you just say, like, all right, you're embarrassing yourself now, just move on, or do you just let them do it?
And one of the great things with one of the things I've really loved, we're talking about triggering events or determining outcomes with sound in Syrinscape. One of the things I really love, especially when that tension has built up and they're sort of sure that every last doors have a trap, and then they eventually give up and just say, I just open the door.
Yeah.
And when you can announce a trap, rather than saying, oh, would you roll a reflex save, I just set off the sound, and I make it really, really loud, a spring trap or a poison dart trap or whatever. And to actually see the players like kind of leap out of their chairs, spill their drink or whatever. There's a wonderful shot of Johnny, one of our DiceStormers, choking on his drink, with this enormous explosion that I sort of set off subtly. Just reach down and touch Syrinscape, and boom! It's like, oh my god! And then you're sort of transporting the players into that sort of hideous place that the characters are actually feeling that experience. So I really like that. And so by hiding the dice rolls, you're actually restricting that metagaming, because although the players will feel like they don't want to metagame, actually you're helping them out heaps by not even making them have to try and pretend that they don't know. And then by adding sound, you're sort of immersing, giving the players a real taste of kind of the ickiness of the sewer or the beauty of the elven forest or whatever. And that once again, without the players having to make a deliberate decision, they've already got some of the work done for them, and they can just actually move on into it subliminally. Because of course, sound and nerves and excitement, all those things are all involuntary. They all happen sort of automatically to us without us having to sort of actively make them happen in our own bodies, and that's why they're such powerful tools to work and use.
Yeah, I definitely I agree that if you can get it right, it is if you can find a way to use it right. Of course, to me, it's one of those things where it adds time to prep. And you have to be like me, where you will spend way too much time prepping everything. I get if I need to get something ready, I'll set up my music cues, I'll set up my tokens and my stats and all my my macros and stuff. It's prep work that most people don't actually do. And that's another topic I like to touch on is people ask me all the time about DM prep. And I find it's a thing that's different for everyone, but one universal piece of information I give to people is do not spend as much time prepping as I do. It's insane, and don't do it, and spend your time doing other things, and
do you repeat adventures that you've run before? Do you have much opportunity to do that?
Luckily, because I run a lot of adventure paths, and if you probably remember on Twitter, I've bugged you a few times to make the soundboard for the Curse of the Crimson Throne adventure path, because I'm running that right now, and I will still be running it when the new hardcover version comes out. I have run that twice already. I've run Rise of the Runelords twice. I've run a lot of things twice, and only because the first time I run it is I have to see what works and what doesn't. And the second time is where I put all the things that I want to change into practice and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what I found. I love watching playing things, playing the same adventure multiple times, even just to see what players do differently each time and to be able to react, especially if you've got a sandboxy game, which I'll be running this afternoon for my son and some of his friends, which I've run twice before. And it's just really interesting because I really just have the situation. I know who's betrayed whom. I know what the big secret is that's going on. And, players will make their characters go in completely different directions to solve those problems. And I really, really enjoy that. I like having to then react and maybe come up with an extra NPC. Maybe they decide to go and interrogate the guard. And so you have to actually invent a guard who actually feels really guilty about what's been going on behind the scenes and sort of knows, but, yeah, so I really, really love that. And yes, especially the adventure parts, there's so much information to take in. I read 3 times before I run them, and still someone says, oh, what's the name of blah blah blah? You're like,
if you've, I assume you read it because you made the soundboard for it, but you read Rise of the Runelords, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we got the complete audio solution for Rise of the Runelords in Syrinscape. So actually, the prep for Syrinscape goes away when you're running Rise of the Runelords because you can just click through the adventures and the events, which is just such a relief.
Yeah, well, obviously that's, like I said before, that's one of the things that first interested me in it. But specifically about the adventure, if you've actually read it, and I don't want to give away any spoilers for anyone who might be reading it, but there's a character that shows up in the very first book. One of the first guys that the players rescue in the very first scene, the book describes him as this sort of like outgoing, kind of personable, noble character that they're supposed to get along with. And so the first time I ran this adventure, I just read that and I played this character. And I think I've mentioned this before, but it's like, when I get to the second book, one of the first things it starts with is this whole character's backstory about how he just literally the day before he arrived in town on that festival, he had murdered his wife, and he's a drug addict and stuff. And I'm like, I think you missed some details when you told me about this guy the first time. And so that was one of those things where it made me realize that not only do I have to make sure that I know all the stuff, all the moving parts and stuff that are going on beforehand, but there's so much that you could read later that might contradict stuff, like and that's why I very rarely run the adventure paths and stuff these days, like out of the book. What I tend to do is I tend to rewrite them very, very significantly. That includes like rearranging whole chunks of the story and like giving characters that I don't feel get enough screen time in the writing more screen time or more build up. And so that's a lot of what comes out of the second half of. So like Crimson Throne was the same thing. The first time I ran it, I just ran it out of the book, and I'm trying to get a feel of, okay, how do the players buy into these certain characters? What aspects do they like? What aspects do I have to work harder on? And then the second time around, it's like, okay, I really need to stretch out this intro because I need them to really hate this bad guy by the time they kill him. I need I need time spent before the city goes into a riot for them to actually experience what this city is like in a normal setting.
So they care.
Before it just self-imposed, like all this stuff that the second time around. And luckily in my Curse of the Crimson Throne game that I've been playing with this group, this one group now for forever now. I don't even remember when I started playing with them. I originally played Rise of the Rune Lords with them. We didn't get through the whole thing, but we got through a lot of it. But one of the players in it, who's playing Crimson Throne with us now, he was also there in the first time I ran Crimson Throne. So we were talking after our last session, and he's basically played through everything that we are playing through now. It's so different because I've rewritten so much stuff that he's telling me. We were talking. He's like, man, this time around is so much better than the last time around. Like all the stuff, the stuff that you're dropping, like I can see where it connects and stuff. But there's also stuff that I don't know where it's going, and it's so much better. And that's hopefully that's my goal. Like you can't, you really, I don't think you can get the best experience out of something the first time through. You need to do it a second time, and the second time, hopefully, if you are paying attention, you can make it so much better for your players.
And that includes games that you've come up with yourself. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Just because it's an adventure path. So you just really honing that and knowing a little bit more how people are probably going to react to what you're doing, and just being a little bit more on top of what you might have to think up on the spot, because you had to think up on the spot last time and you managed to do that without stuffing up. Yeah. So I've even had, as you said, I've had players at the table who have played through an adventure before, and you'd think that would be impossible, but it's not impossible at all. They have forgotten how things actually fit together in the long run, and they're intrigued to see it again. Yeah. But they can use their knowledge to actually help the story and assist the story, and really, really benefit the other players at the table to really enjoy what's going on by, sometimes getting to the point a little bit more quickly, or sometimes sort of deliberately misinterpreting what's going on and sort of leading the players astray.
Yeah, I don't think I've never like this guy who I specifically mentioned, who's playing now for the second time. Actually, when we were playing Rise of the Rune Lords, he, at the same time as us, he was DMing Rise of the Rune Lords, but he was DMing it farther along than we were. So he knew everything was going to happen, and but the way he played it, like the rest of the players in the group didn't. So he didn't. But he, we had talked about it, and he really didn't direct the story in any way. Yeah. He just kind of played his character. But what's interesting to me, and people who know me know I'm a horrible writer. If I don't have someone to bounce, like, I can't come up with anything on my own, but if I have someone to bounce ideas off of, generally I can come up with something alright. So when we were playing Rune Lords, like, I would constantly just bounce ideas off him, tell him how I was thinking about changing things, because he already knew what was supposed to happen, so he could weigh in on, like, what he thought, the changes might do, or, where he thought things might need fleshing out. I haven't done that with him for Crimson Throne this time around. I actually haven't really talked. luckily, I wouldn't have had anyone to talk about except for the fact that Paizo has a whole forum section dedicated to their adventure pass, where if you go on there, you can see my 7-page write-up of all the things that I was like, every session I'm just thinking about what I'm going to rewrite and the changes that I'm going to make. And so having people like that to just bounce ideas off of helps me sort of be more creative and just make sure everything flows together. And I think, oh my god, I'm going to try and dig it up and I'm going to drop it in chat, because there was a thing I tweeted out a month or so ago, was just my plot spiderweb. And it was, I had sent it to someone on Twitter to explain how I write stories, and you look at it and you'll see it's so ridiculous. I'm gonna find that in Dropbox, so I'm gonna drop that in chat, because it's so hard. It's so disorganized and horrible to look at, but somehow it works for me, and I don't actually know how.
One of my favorite adventures we've been playing with the DiceStormers it's called Under the Gods. Mm-hmm. And it's become a campaign. It started off just as a one-shot run by John, who also is another host of the DiceStormers, and he started this story, and we pretty much alternate now. We just go back and forwards, bouncing off each of the other's ideas, and you're sitting there as a player playing in his adventure that he's running, and something occurs to you, or something he hasn't focused on, or an unexpected consequence sort of occurs to you, and then you run a whole adventure, sort of weaving his story and taking the narrative control from him. And that's been a really, really great experience, because we're able to sort of enrichen the whole game and the whole narrative with basically two people sometimes competing for the direction of, is the bad guy actually the bad guy, or is he not? And often complicating what's happened in the previous session. In fact, the whole adventure has turned out pretty much to be along the theme of that everything the players have done to try and help have made everything worse.
Oh, yeah.
So they've sort of, released one power to counter another power, and the entire thing's sort of gone horrendously terrible, and, thousands of people die as the sea sort of floods over the land because they've released the god of, water against the god of drought, and it's actually been hilarious. And sort of the players we're all sort of going, ah! So actually, at the moment, I'm trying to think of a way that they can actually do something really, really good and remedy the situation at some point.
Yeah, I did.
Which is fascinating.
I did that I did a similar thing. I've mentioned this before, but I did a similar thing to my players when they went undercover with the city guard to try and get in close to this crime lord. The city guard wanted to take down, or wanted to find who he was working with, because he just started ramping up like a drug operation that he runs, and so the players were supposed to go in and try and find out information, and the only thing that they went in, and he's just like, they had to fight for his attention, but he was just like, you seem capable, I got some jobs for you, and they went on 3 different jobs, they went on 4 different jobs, and all of them basically all of them were jobs that were given to this crime lord by the shadowy figure in the background that, was kind of basically giving his orders. And they didn't realize that all the jobs were connected until the end, when they basically realized everything they did helped whoever was in the background just establish a perfect drug empire in the city because of what they did. And they got a letter from him basically saying, thank you for helping out. And they're like, fuck. That's did that.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, absolutely. And that's just what's perfect. And if all those dots suddenly connect, and there's been enough foreshadowing and possibly some suspicions from the players would have had suspicions the whole time, like, are we really doing the right thing? I'd feel slightly, morally compromised. Yes, it was all terrible. No. It's just ideal.
Yeah, I tweeted about that recently. My players had done a thing where there was a name that I had dropped about this famous dude back at the beginning of the campaign. They had found this famous jewel that was owned by the queen, and they just heard a passing story about some guy that went insane looking for it. And then we come back later when they're level 6, and they have a bunch of these dossiers for criminals that they're all escaped from a prison wagon, and they have to hunt down all the criminals. And as they're looking through the dossiers, they notice this guy's name, this investigator, shows up on every single one, and they're like, what? We know this guy? And what I tweeted out specifically was those moments where the players just sort of everything that you've been setting up, or that sort of plot that you set up way, way long ago, and it just kind of comes around on them, and they realize it. Those are some of the best moments for me. It feels so rewarding just to see that expression on their face.
Yeah, and even sometimes you can be setting up a plot with a whole lot of sort of hints and ideas and characters and things. And I've actually had the moment where the players sort of go, like one of the players goes, hang on, no, it's because blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, 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 uncles, blah, blah, and you're like, yes, I can't believe you thought of that. That's incredible. You revealed the plan. It's like, and actually, if all the evidence that you've sort of supplied, and at least the way you've presented it and the way they've interpreted, all points logically to that conclusion, which was completely different from what your conclusion you had before, then that makes perfect sense. And should be the way the story goes. And so everything sort of like quickly rattles around and changes in my head as I desperately try to adjust to this new revelation. And then the player, of course, gets this sort of sense of exhilaration that they've worked out things. And it's that moment you definitely don't want to go, well, actually, no, it's, quite the opposite of what you think. Though that is an option, obviously. But if it can possibly work, then, of course, you're giving narrative control to the players and, they feel like they're a real part. And at that point, when they have that revelation, they're never going to be disengaged from this plot again. They're never going to not sort of care because they're really they're rationally thinking about it. They've sort of taken everything into their mind, and that's where they've got to.
Yeah, I had one player, and I forget if I've talked about this in detail, but they were investigating they had learned about a vampire cult in the city, and they were basically at the bottom of this cult's like temple lair, this tiny little lair that they had, and there was an altar, and this cult is called the Feasters of the Heart. So naturally on the altar there was a heart in a bowl, and they're fighting this vampire,
Nice.
whatever. It's traditional vampire priest at the bottom, they gotta fight him, but right before they had started fighting, this vampire had talked specifically to the first guy in the room, who's the barbarian. And he basically had offered him an opportunity to join our family. Why not? Take the power, and it'll be better. And the barbarian suffers, and he's like, "What do I get if I join you?" So he was kind of thinking about it for a second, and so somehow during the fight, he ran up to the altar, he grabbed the heart, and he just took a big bite. And the players flipped out. And so the next 3 sessions or so was basically me slowly applying a vampire template to this character as he got weaker and weaker and he started changing. But but the thing is, I had no idea what to do with this, because I'm like, do I turn him into a full vampire? Are they gonna have to kill him? I don't know what I'm gonna do. But just last session, I just sort of came up with something as I was driving back from getting food. I had gotten food and I was going to my session. And I was just talking to myself in the car, and I tend to do that when, like, a lot of my planning comes in the form of putting on the mantle of an NPC and just sort of monologuing as them, and then when I build those monologues in my head, that's where the story points come from. And I was just monologuing as this vampire woman, and like I just imagine her coming to him in a dream and saying, like, to this barbarian who is kind of an orphan, a homeless criminal, she basically said, like, all you've ever wanted is a family. And that's what happened. She came to him in his sleep and she told him that, and he's just like, this guy who's normally like composed and cocky and stuff, he just spent the rest of the session just like, he didn't have anything, like, he was thrown for a loop, and the rest of the party was going ape shit in chat, like, holy shit, it's that woman from before, the one that the guy was talking about that came to her in his sleep. Like, and they're putting it together, and I'm like, I hope this pays off, because it seems like they're really engaged with that, but...
That's right, yeah.
But yeah, that's my method of planning. Cool. I don't know, I'm not very good at writing things down. I just sort of talk to myself, and whatever comes out, comes out.
Yeah, I have sort of random sort of mind maps on pieces of paper with sort of arrows pointing from one thing to another, and there are a few NPC names. I love to set up a whole situation with maybe the 5 different really important NPCs or organizations in a situation or a town or a cult or whatever, and I like to know what their motivations are, what each NPC's motivation is, what they're trying to achieve, what the big secret is that each of them has, and kind of and then basically just trigger, put the players in the middle of that situation, and then just trigger something that gets them sniffing around, and then see where it falls out. And that's one whole style of adventure, which is kind of sandboxy, and that has its challenges that the PCs can be completely off the track and sort of just wander around aimlessly or not care or whatever. And then the other sort of style I really like is to take like something like a fairy tale or whatever, and then just dump the PCs right in the middle of it, and watch them slowly work out that they're actually doing Little Red Riding Hood, except she's got some incredible twist. So there's a game on YouTube based on Little Red Riding Hood, which I really enjoyed doing. And then you've got kind of the basic narrative structure already written out for you, and you can just basically play with puns or with twists or with sort of fantasy role-playing-ish sort of takes on an already established theme that people already know inherently, within themselves subconsciously, and then at some point within the game they make the revelation, and usually John will sort of groan as he realizes I've done it again, which I really enjoyed that moment.
Yeah, I kind of I tend to shy away from those stories that are easily identifiable, which is there's an adventure path Paizo put out called Carrying Crown, and I tend to shy away from it just because all of the adventures, when I read them, they read as sort of horror movie pastiches, and it's one of those things where I fear that if the player realizes what they're playing, it will stop being as immersive as it could be.
Yeah, that's right.
So I tend to avoid this. One of the things that's interesting to me, though, is we started playing Rise of the Runelords on Encounter Roleplay, and I didn't even think about this going in, but Rise of the Reign of... Did I say right? Reign of Winter. I meant Reign of Winter.
Reign of Winter. Okay, yeah.
And as we're playing Reign of Winter, it didn't even occur to me that I should have probably made sure the players are familiar with the character of Baba Yaga before we start this, because it comes right up to them and they're like, I don't know who that is. I have no idea. And I'm like, oh, now I have to explain this to them in a way that makes sense, and it's like.
And the walking chicken houses things, which kind of are just sort of ridiculous.
They haven't even gotten there, but they're going to they're going to at some point, and it's. I have to find a, I didn't even think that I would have to sort of make sure they either, because the thing is, that campaign does not start in a place where Baba Yaga is a person that matters. So the players shouldn't know who she is, but also, but at the same time, it's understanding the concept is kind of important to buying into the,
that's right, and that's why you should be changing the adventure paths and adapting them as you play through them, because the assumed knowledge that the writers have, it's impossible for them to ever take on the mindset of what your players happen to know, or even the genres your players like to sort of engage with in other media, let alone the playing style that your players like to have. It's impossible for ex Paizo writer to sit down and write the perfect adventure for your group. So you should be, at the very least, sort of adjusting NPCs or situations on the fly to suit your game style, or at the most, just farming those adventure paths for wonderful locations, NPCs, stat blocks, hallelujah, and sort of just lots and lots of amazing ideas for how you can let things run. And so, I think you've just got to use those. When we first released Rise of the Runelords, we decided we'd play through Burnt Offerings, and give a demo of Syrinscape in it, so that Syrinscape was a really young company then, and we wanted to just basically show it. And I really tried to stick to the module, because kind of the theory was, if you're playing in the public, people are going to come to you and they want to see how Rise of the Runelords goes and how each of the encounters works, because that's what I often do when I'm running one of these adventure paths. I go and watch someone else play it first. And so I really stuck to it, and I found it really difficult and a bit frustrating to have to know X or Y, and if someone asked a question about sort of, I'd be sort of turning through the book, which is of course terrible for